Good morning, everyone. Before we begin, I will take roll call. I'm Paul Foster, and I am present. Vice Chairman Bell.
Present.
Commissioner Doggett.
Present.
Commissioner Galo.
Present.
Commissioner McCall.
Present.
Commissioner Patton.
Present.
Commissioner Rowling.
Present.
Commissioner Scott.
Present.
Commissioner Timmerman.
Present.
This meeting is called to order August 20, 2026 at 9:09 a.m. Before proceeding with any business, I believe Dr. Yaskowitz has a statement he'd like to make.
Public notice of this meeting containing all items on the proposed agendas has been filed in the Office of the Secretary of State as required by Chapter 551 Government Code, referred to as the Open Meetings Act. I would like for this fact to be noted in the official record of this meeting.
Thank you. First up is the approval of the minutes from the commission meeting held May 28th, 2026, which have been distributed previously. Is there a motion for approval?
Call.
Thank you.
Chairman, second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Next is the acknowledgement of the list of donations which have been distributed. Is there a motion?
Scott, so moved.
All right, thank you. And a second?
Doggett, second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Next is the consideration of contracts which have been distributed. Do I hear a motion for approval?
Commissioner Bell, so moved.
Thank you. And a second? Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. And next, one of our favorite parts of each meeting, special recognitions, retirements, and service award presentations. And Dr. Yaskowitz has the floor.
Thank you, Chairman. You're right. This is one of the great parts of the meeting, the two-day meeting. Although it's hard to compete against the youth hunters and the and brigades, but we'll try our best this morning. So first off, we'd like to recognize the Midwest Officer of the Year, Game Warden Zach Temple. In 1995, Texas Parks and Wildlife Law Enforcement Division joined the Association of Midwest Fish and Game Law Enforcement Officers. The association is comprised of 29 member agencies from the United States and Canada. The 2026 Midwest Game Warden Association annual meeting was held this past June, where Game Warden Zach Temple was recognized as Texas Officer of the Year for his outstanding service and accomplishments. Warden Temple graduated from the 58th Game Warden Academy in 2013 and was assigned to Smith County. Warden Temple's career enforcement statistics include a total of 1,400 citations, violations filed. He patrolled more than 252,000 square miles over lands of Texas and logged over 3,500 hours in a boat on our public waterways. He has filed over 23 cases for hunting dove and ducks over bait, 13 cases where individuals shot deer from a public roadway at night, and 9 boating while intoxicated offenses as lead investigator. Zach has served in numerous search and rescue operations, including the Deweyville floods, Hurricane Harvey, the 2020 East Texas ice storm, and the recently Kerrville floods. Zach has participated in multiple Operation Lone Star deployments. Zach is deeply committed to his community, his family, and the mission of TPWD. We are proud to recognize him as the Midwest Officer of the Year. Please come up, Zach Temple.
All right, guys. 2 photos. Here we go. 1, 2, and 1 more. Perfect.
Next, we have a retirement. Lieutenant Dwayne Havis has faithfully flown for the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department as Lieutenant Game Warden for over 30 years with a career total of almost 19,000 hours in fixed-wing aircraft and helicopters with an impeccable safety record. Lieutenant Havis has flown law enforcement missions and wildlife survey flights all over the state and into the Gulf. He has assisted other state and local agencies with environmental crimes patrol and search and rescue operations. Dwayne has been involved with the natural disaster responses, including Hurricane Katrina, Rita, and Ike, the Bastrop fires, and Central Texas flooding, among others, over his 3 decades with the agency. Additionally, Dwayne is recognized by the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement as a Master Peace Officer. In 2015, Dwayne was selected as the Airborne Public Safety Association's Fixed Wing Operator of the Year. The APSA is an international association of over 3,000 law enforcement pilots from around the world. Retiring with 30 years of service, Lieutenant Dwayne Havis.
I would have recognized him. All right, very good. All right, that's perfect. All right, here we go. 1, 2, and 3. One more. Thank you.
Dwayne, you've taken to that retirement. Next, we have our Service Awards Chairman. I want to say 35 years ago, and this was a very short-lived experiment, a program created by the department to recruit middle schoolers to work in the department during the day and go to school at night. That lasted a half a day until Human Resources got their hand on the idea and squashed that. But there was one applicant during that time. That was Rodney Franklin. And so he was grandfathered into this program. This is all a tall tale, by the way, just so. But not far from the truth. Rodney Franklin started his career with the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department, working as a seasonal employee at the small historic site in Paris, Texas, in 1986. After graduating from Texas A&M University College Station in 1991, he went on to manage the same historic site and was later promoted to Lake Bob Sandlin in Mount Pleasant, Texas. In 1997, Rodney became the complex manager at Cooper Lake State Park for 8 years before becoming the regional director of State Park Central Region 5 in Waco, Texas. And in August 2017, he accepted the position of Deputy Director of Texas State Parks in Austin. Rodney has served as Division Director of State Parks since December of 2018, overseeing 1,600 park employees that now care for 93 and growing, just seems about every day, parks around the state. He's also a proud winner of the 2023 National Gold Medal. I knew this was going to make it in. The 2023 National Gold Medal for Excellence in Parks and Recreation. Rodney is a National Conservation Leadership Institute Fellow, and he serves as chairman of the National Association of State Park Directors. Rodney was also chair of the Board of Regents for the National State Parks Leadership School. He currently serves on the executive board of the Texas Committee for America 250 Initiative, and Rodney was the 2025 recipient of the Terry Hershey Distinguished Professional Award at Texas A&M University. And speaking of awards, he has more awards on his office walls than he does wallpaper, so he continues to add to that. With 35 years of dedicated service, Rodney Franklin.
That's the only one I've voted. Perfect. Here we go. On 3, 1, 2, and 3. One more. 1, 2, and
Len Palashik began his career with Texas Parks and Wildlife Department on May 1st in 1996 as a wildlife biologist on the J.D. Murphy Wildlife Management Area near Port Arthur. Len has spent the majority of his time conducting research on the impacts of pipeline construction on emergent marshes and techniques to minimize saltwater intrusion into intermediate marshes. In September of 1998, Len transferred to the Wildlife District 7 and served as wildlife biologist for Fayette, Bastrop, and Caldwell counties. While in District 7, he assisted with designing, developing, support for, and monitoring the experimental antler restriction regulations within the original 6-county area. On January 1st of 2005, Len moved to Rockport as the Region 4 Wildlife Director and assisted with negotiating numerous pipeline easements across multiple coastal wildlife management areas and recovery efforts after Hurricane Rita, Ike, and Harvey and the 2008 Chaparral WMA wildfire. Len helped facilitate the acquisition and development of Powderhorn WMA, and on September 1st, 2023, the Wildlife Division restructured, and Len assumed the Regional Director role for newly created Region 5, covering South Texas and the Lower Texas coast. He now spends much of his time dealing with New World screwworm. Len, thank you for doing that. And with 30 years of service, Len Palashik.
Thank you. On three, 1, 2, one more.
Ray Lenderman began his career with Texas Parks and Wildlife Department in December of 2000 when he was hired as a fisheries and wildlife technician with the Aquatic Habitat Enhancement Branch of Inland Fisheries. Ray was on the front lines as invasive vegetation issues began to take off on our public waters, mainly treating water hyacinth and later giant salvinia. In 2008, he joined the Jasper District Inland Fisheries Management Office, where he has been since. Ray is a seasoned employee fulfilling multiple roles. He has conducted thousands of fisheries surveys ranging from creels, electrofishing, gill netting, trap netting, and vegetation surveys. He's also responsible for organizing and conducting the annual TPWD Youth Trout Derby held in Jasper every January for the past 25 years, providing thousands of kids with their first fishing experience. Ray is a valued member of the department's family and a member of the Jasper District Management Office. Ray's passion for the profession is unparalleled. With 25 years of service, Ray Lenderman. I don't know about this next one. Jamie McClanahan started her career with Texas Parks and Wildlife Department in 2001 as an accountant. During that time, she also earned her MBA in Management Information Systems and went on to accept a position within the Information Technology branch where she was able to merge her two passions, accounting and technology. Good on you, Jamie. Throughout her next 10 years, she worked on many division and agency-level projects and initiatives, fulfilling various partnership roles and leading technology governance planning. In November 2021, she was hired as the Chief Information Officer, IT Director. In this role, she has continued to prioritize collaboration, outreach to internal and external customers, showing that technology plays an important role in the mission. IT has won many project awards. Yes, Rodney, they have. And yet they continue to ensure all internal and external staff have daily, sustainable digital services to enjoy and support the mission in whatever way meets their needs. She also has an interesting passion for the genus sorry about this. Ceridi squirrels, and in particular Ceridi niger, the fox squirrel. She takes these, well, they're not live. She takes these squirrels on the road with her to enlighten the mood of division meetings and other opportunities. She lives by the agency mission, even away from TPWD, and can find her outside hunting, hiking, camping, and fishing on days she is not at work. With 25 years of service, Jamie McClanahan.
Here we go. Yeah, you're good. Not so much. A little bit. One to Ann. One more. One to Ann.
Roger Nicholas began his career at Texas Parks and Wildlife Department in 2004 with the Inland Fisheries Division as a summer intern at the District Management Office in Abilene. From there, Roger worked another 14 months in the Inland Fisheries Division at Possum Kingdom Fish Hatchery and the District Management Office in Waco. In 2007, Roger was accepted to the 53rd Texas Game Warden Academy. After graduating in May of 2008, he was stationed in Val Verde County, where he served for 7 years. In 2015, Roger and his family transferred to McLennan County, where he served another 4 years in the field. During his time in the field, Roger was an active member of the Texas Game Warden Search and Rescue Team and Helicopter Rescue Team. Roger was a search and rescue instructor for game warden cadets and field game wardens, as well as many deployments across the state to floods and other natural disasters, including Hurricane Harvey in 2017. In 2019, Roger was promoted to sergeant with Special Investigations Unit, where he continues to serve this day. In this role, Roger works larger and more complex wildlife and environmental investigations and assists field game wardens across the state with their investigations. With 20 years of service, Roger Nicholas.
All right, here we go. One, two, and.
Walter Clarkson began his career at Texas Parks and Wildlife Department at Huntsville State Park in September of 2007. Since then, he has played an essential role in maintaining operations by keeping equipment in working condition, operating equipment, and painting and maintaining park facilities. Throughout his career, Walter has been a dedicated member of the Huntsville State Park maintenance team, helping the park recover from dozens of severe storms and hurricanes. He has also assisted other Texas state parks with storm cleanup and recovery efforts, contributing to whatever experience he has and the skills to the needs of others. Walter has demonstrated a strong work ethic, dependability, and commitment to preserving Texas state parks for visitors. His willingness to support both his home park and neighboring parks during challenging times reflects his dedication to the mission of TPWD and the people it serves. With 20 years of service, Walter Clarkson.
Sure you don't want to give a speech?
Perfect. Thank you. One, two, and one more.
And next we have John Moore. John began his career at Texas Parks and Wildlife on June 8th of 2006 at Cedar Hill State Park as a state park police officer. During his tenure, he worked at several state parks, including Cedar Hill, Lake Ray Roberts Complex, McKinney Falls, and then Austin headquarters. He has managed the Austin headquarters police, and in September of 2019, he became captain of operations support. His projects have included transitioning records management system, computer transitions, including in-car computer added dispatch, firearms purchases and exchanges, and more. Currently, John is involved in a comprehensive change of technology for state park law enforcement. With 20 years of service, John Moore.
Here we go. One, two, and one more.
Chairman, that concludes my presentation.
All right, congratulations again to each of you. All very well deserved. At this time, I would like to inform the audience that everyone is welcome to stay for all the remainder of the meeting. But if you wish to leave, now would be an appropriate time to do so.
Not you, Rodney.
Yeah, not you, Rodney. You have to stay.
You'll be back.
Okay. Hello? Item number 1, personnel matters, Executive Director Compensation. Ms. Jada Luella will make her presentation.
Good morning, Chairman Foster, Vice Chair Bell, Commissioners. For the record, my name is Jada Lohula, and I'm the Director of Human Resources for the department. I am here today to provide a recommendation for the Executive Director's compensation. The General Appropriations Act authorizes a maximum of $299,813 per year for the TPWD Executive Director's salary. The Executive Director's salary is currently $268,230 per year. The proposed salary, effective September 1, is $284,324 per year. As of yesterday at 5 p.m., we received 7 comments. 2 agree, 4 disagree completely, and/or specifically with recommendations. Those that disagree completely or specifically cite the following reasons: recommend a cost of living adjustment only, recommend no more than 6% to mirror staff raises, and better use of tax dollars. Staff recommends that the Commission adopt the following motion. The Texas Parks and Wildlife Commission approves the resolution to increase the salary of the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department Executive Director. That concludes my report. If you have any questions.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Jada? Do I hear a motion to approve? Thank you. And a second, Patton. All in favor? Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you very
Thank you.
much. Next, item number 2, financial overview. Mr. Reggie Pegues will make a presentation.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Vice Chairman, Commissioners. For the record, my name is Reggie Pegues, Chief Financial Officer. Item 2 is the financial overview. These are the same items I covered in detail during yesterday's work session that will come before you today as action items. I'll be recapping the FY27 operating and capital budget, budget and investment policy resolutions, and finally deposit options for 15% of boat revenues. First up is a recap of the proposed fiscal 27 operating and capital budget. Starting with the conference committee, there's a crosswalk from our Article 6 base appropriation of $537 million plus $85 million for benefits for state paid portions of retirement, insurance, and Social Security. This gives us a proposed budget of $622 million. These next set of slides, I'll be slicing the budget from different views. The first view is by method of finance. General revenue is our largest source at $347.7 million. This includes $225 million in sporting goods sales tax. Next is account 9, the game, fish, and water safety account. This provides $153.1 million from license and boat fees. Next, we have account 64, the state parks account. This adds about $44 million and is funded from park fee revenue. And finally, federal funds at $70.2 million. This includes both sport, fish, and wildlife restoration. These 4 sources make up about 99% of our total funding, with the smaller items shown for reference. This next slide corresponds to your Exhibit B and outlines our major expense categories. Salaries are the largest at $271.1 million, followed by operating, capital, fringe benefits, and grants. The grants are primarily located within the local parks division. These next 2 slides provide a breakout of the total budget by division and full-time equivalents, or FTEs. Across both views and dollars and FTEs, law enforcement and state parks make up the largest portions in terms of FTEs and dollars. This next slide breaks out our capital budget across the major categories. Land acquisition at $13.1 million, construction at $54.6 million, representing the largest category, state parks and minor repairs at $15.3 million, information technology at $10.6 million. This includes laptop replacements, data center charges, and cybersecurity. Transportation items for vehicle and boats at $16.1 million. Followed and finally by capital equipment at $3.1 million for mowers, trailers, and radios. These next set of slides are a year-over-year comparison of the proposed FY27 budget versus the final FY26 approved budget. The proposed FY27 budget of $622 million is lower than last year's approved budget of $659 million by $37.7 million. The majority of this variance is in general revenue and is due to one-time directed grants relating to local parks, including $10 million for Robb Elementary and $850 for Shell Bottom boat ramps. These types of grants are typically front-loaded in the first year of the biennium. And this variance for one-time grants will also cascade through all the other schedules, just in different formats, and I'll point those out as we move forward. This next view is a comparison by object of expense. The major variance is in the grants category. All the other categories are within 6%, except for the grants, which has a variance of 54%. Again, this is due to the one-time local park grants that were front-loaded. This next slide is a division comparison. The largest variance on this sheet are executive office at 25%. This reflects the front-loading of Texas Farm and Ranch Lands funds of $1.7 million, and infrastructure reflecting a $7 million grant for the battleship that was also a one-time purpose. Moving on to the second listing of divisions, the largest variance is 51.9%. Again, this is the local parks one-time front loading of grants. Next is a side-by-side comparison of our capital budget. Overall, the variance was 2.6%, with the largest increase in terms of dollars of $11.6 million in construction, and this is primarily for statewide dam improvements of $10 million in FY27. And this is offset by decreases in information technology of $4.2 million and capital equipment of $2.4 million, primarily in state parks. Next, I'll move on to budget investment policy resolutions. These policies have not changed in the last year, but they do require an annual review. First up is the budget policy, which is shown in your Exhibit C. There have been no changes since last year. A few key points to highlight. The Commission authorizes the Executive Director to execute the budget. Any budget changes over $250,000 other than federal funds and bond proceeds require approval from the Chairman, Vice Chair, or their designee. Donations over $500 must be accepted by the Chairman, Vice Chair, or designee and are formally acknowledged at each scheduled Commission meeting, as you did earlier today. And finally, funds may be used for any purpose permitted by statute or rule. Next, we move on to Exhibit D, the investment policy. Again, no changes since last year. A few key points. The Public Funds Investment Act, or PFIA, requires state agencies to maintain an investment policy and conduct an annual review when depositing or investing funds outside of the state treasury. These requirements do not apply to funds that remain inside the state treasury, as those funds are invested by the comptroller. All TPWD funds are currently deposited in the state treasury, so these provisions do not apply at this time. If TPWD ever deposits funds outside the Treasury, the Executive Director would appoint an investment officer with one important exception. The Centennial Parks Conservation Fund is required by statute to be invested through the Texas Treasury Safekeeping Trust Company. At present, these funds are still held in the Treasury. And finally, I'll be reviewing deposit options for 15% of boat-related fees. House Bill 448 from the 85th Legislature changed the statute to make this transfer optional rather than mandatory. Under the prior language, up to 15% of boat-related fees from Fund 9, the Game, Fish, and Water Safety account had to be transferred into the state account Fund 64 for cash flow support. With House Bill 448, this transfer is now discretionary and can be made only when needed for cash flow. At this time, Fund 64's projected cash balances through fiscal year 27 are sufficient, so no transfer is needed. As of yesterday, there was one comment in agreement. Staff recommends that the Texas Parks and Wildlife Commission adopt the following motions. 1, the Executive Director is authorized to expend funds to operate the Texas and Parks Wildlife Department in accordance with the proposed FY27 operating and capital budget, Exhibits A and B, the budget policy, Exhibit C, and the investment policy, Exhibit D. Number 2, the Commission approves retaining 100% of all boat registration, title, and sales revenue collected during FY27 in Fund 9. This concludes my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Do we have any comments or questions?
Commissioner
Mr. Bell?
Bell, I have one. I believe that the governor's office, as we look forward for upcoming financial items, I believe the governor's office has asked about a kind of all agencies to present a 3% reduction.
Yes, that was.
So where do, I was going to say, can you clarify where we stand on that or how we're planning to address it?
Oh, yeah, that was one of the items in my LAR presentation. Our 3% amounts to $13.7 million. It's primarily about $6 million of Fund 9 construction, and the rest is related to state parks operating. So that's our reduction. We intend to ask for that restoration as an exceptional item.
I just want to make sure we were clear on that. Okay, thank you.
Other comments or questions? There are 2 motions for approval on this item. Right. Oh, wait. Sorry, I'm on the wrong page. Uh, Yeah, there are two motions for approval on this item. One, the executive director is authorized to expend funds to operate TPWD in accordance with the proposed FY 2027 agency budget by strategy. Exhibit A, the FY 2027 operating capital budget by division. Object of expense, Exhibit B, the budget policy, Exhibit C, and the investment policy, Exhibit D. Do I hear a motion?
Commissioner Bell, so moved.
And a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Anybody opposed? That motion passes. Motion 2, the Texas Parks and Wildlife Commission approves retaining 100% of all boat registration, titling, and related fees collected during FY 2027 in Fund 9. Do I hear a motion for approval? Thank you. Second. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I hear none. Motion passes. Thank you very much. Item number 3, fiscal year 2027 internal audit plan. Ms. Brandy Meeks.
Good morning, Chairman, Vice Chairman, Commissioners. For the record, my name is Brandy Meeks, Chief Auditor. This morning, I would like to present to you for approval our proposed fiscal year 2027 internal audit plan. Texas Government Code 2102.008 states that the annual audit plan developed by the internal auditor must be approved by the state agency's governing board. This and the next slide show our proposed plan. As you will see, we propose to carry over 5 projects. We'd like to complete the audit of the selected pass-through grant, complete the Data and Records Governance and Controls Advisory, Part 1. We'd like to perform the audit of the Centennial Fund processes and controls, as well as the Ethics and Agency Governance Advisory, and then, of course, complete the audit of the Job Order Contracting Program. We are also proposing 6 new assurance engagements. That includes 3 state park fiscal control audits, the audit of our financial resources, infrastructure, and state park key performance measures, a review of our third-party vendor risks and controls, and an audit of our accounts payable and travel reimbursement processes. We are also proposing to perform an uninsured assets advisory. As far as IT cybersecurity advisories, we would like to perform a backup and data recovery advisory and Part 2 of our Data and Records Governance and Control Advisory. And then as far as administrative and other projects, of course, we'll be doing our fiscal year 26 annual report for our oversight agencies, performing our Chapter 59 law enforcement seizures and forfeitures, performing our 2 semi-annual follow-up reports, and then we'll have a QAR next year that we must have done. And then, of course, we'll do our annual risk assessment and prepare our audit plan for fiscal year 28. And there are some hours budgeted for any special projects, liaison activities, or investigations. As of yesterday at 5 p.m., there have been no comments. And so staff recommends that the Commission adopt the following motion: that the Texas Parks and Wildlife Commission approves the Texas Parks and Wildlife Fiscal Year 27 Internal Audit Plan as listed in Exhibit A. This concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Questions or comments? I would entertain a motion to approve. Thank you. And a second?
Second's gone.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Brandy.
Thank you.
All right. Action item number 4, advisory committee rules, recommended adoption of changes. Craig Bonds.
Good morning, Chairman, Vice Chairman, Commissioners. For the record, Craig Bonds, Chief Operating Officer. I'm presenting on a recommended adoption of proposed changes to advisory committee rules. Commission Chair is authorized to appoint committees to advise the Commission on issues under its jurisdiction under rules that describe the committee's purpose and tasks. As you know, advisory committees have finite terms of 4 years unless the agency extends the termination date by rule. Staff seeks the commission to extend TPWD advisory committees for another 4 years. This last occurred in 2022, so the committees expired on July 1, 2026. 2 advisory committees, the Game Warden Academy Advisory Committee and the Texas Statewide Trails Advisory Board, are statutorily required and not subject to the normal 4-year tenure. Based on Commissioner Galo's question yesterday about member term lengths, and as a logical outgrowth of our original proposal, Chairman, with your permission to entertain this tweak, we have proposed a change from yesterday's presentation, and I'll point it out. It's the first sub-bullet there. The proposal now provides that all committee member terms will start on the date of their appointment and all end on July 1, 2030. Which provides greater clarity and consistency in the appointment term endpoint regardless of the appointment date. In addition, allowing members to serve after their terms expire until a replacement is appointed ensures committees can continue to keep functioning effectively should new appointments occur at any duration beyond July 1, 2030. I think that addresses your comment yesterday. Thank you for that. Staff seeks to rename the Wildlife Diversity Advisory Committee to the Wildlife Conservation Advisory Committee to clarify that the focus aligns with the changes that department has made to rename the Wildlife Diversity Program to the Wildlife Conservation Program. The proposed changes reflect updated terminology that the Wildlife Conservation Program uses to describe its work in connection with the program's maturation. The changes broaden the committee's scope to advise on issues related to fur bearers, in addition to non-game and rare species as currently described in the rules, since the law distinguishes between non-game and fur bearers, and the Wildlife Conservation Program monitors and manages them as well. Further, the changes provide that the committee specifically advises on matters pertaining to technical guidance and outreach with various individuals and entities rather than just education and communication. And this better reflects programmatic priorities regarding technical guidance with landowners and adult outreach efforts. Overall, the proposed changes are intended to more accurately reflect the Wildlife Conservation Program's purview and terminology to reduce confusion about its work. The current and next slide lists the advisory committees proposed for continuation by relevant division, including the State Parks Advisory Committee and 7 committees reflecting the disciplinary and stakeholder breadth under the Wildlife Division's purview. 2 committees under the Coastal Fisheries Division and 1 each for the Inland Fisheries, Law Enforcement, Executive, and Support Resources Divisions, with the Accessibility Advisory Committee transitioning to the Human Resources Division this coming September. As of yesterday at 5 p.m., we had received 5 total comments, 2 in agreement, 1 disagrees completely, 2 disagree specifically. Reasons for disagreement: 1 comment was not germane to the topic, and 1 comment opposed having multiple subcommittees on the wildlife under the Wildlife Division's purview. Staff recommends the Commission adopt the following motion. The Texas Parks and Wildlife Commission adopts amendments to Title 31 of the Texas Administrative Code, Sections 51.601, 51.606 to 51.615, 51.631, and 51.671 to 51.673, as listed in Exhibit A, with changes as necessary to the proposed text as published in the July 17th, 2026 issue of the Texas Register. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Vice Chairman?
Hey, Craig.
Sir.
Where are we, and I think this question might have come up yesterday, and I don't know that we addressed it, but did we have a specific committee for, or advisory committee for CWD, or was that being handled under the whitetail?
So we have a chronic wasting disease working group that is specifically tasked with providing input on that topic. Of course, we also have a whitetail deer advisory committee, certainly advises on a broader scope than wildlife health, but CWD often does come up within that committee as well.
And so technically, the difference between our working group and our advisory committee is what? How would you define it?
I would define that the advisory committees are defined in administrative code, and those members are appointed exclusively by the chairman. Whereas a working group can be stood up and appointed by the executive director, and sometimes they may or may not have a finite period. They're stood up to perform a certain task, advise on a specific topic, and if that topic is resolved, they could sunset or they could continue. As in the case of CWD, it's a chronic issue.
Okay. Because I know that I know we had expressed some interest in just making, in particular, because how we're rolling out, how we're moving forward with CWD, and I do know that our number of cases or of the number of sightings of chronic wasting disease have come down, but in some, it depends on how you look at it. By entity, they're down. By number, they may be up. But we just want to make sure that we're tracking that well. And I was just trying to, maybe you guys could give us some advice later on, or give the chairman some advice on whether you think it's better that we have a separate group or continue to have a working group on that. Either way, as long as we're continuing to address it.
Yes, sir. We'll point out for the record that the CWD working group was recently reappointed, and so they had their first meeting. What was that, Alan? 22nd. Yes, sir. And we do believe that that's an important working group, and we would advise that continue.
When that, can you make sure that if that working group is meeting, can I at least get a notice that they're meeting so that I can try to stick my head in? I know Commissioner Galo probably has an interest there, perhaps Commissioner Rowling too. So
y'all are all welcome to participate as you see fit.
Thanks.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Galo?
Yes.
Okay, I might be under the wrong impression, but wasn't the CWD working group just renamed? What was it before?
It was named a task force before, which functionally is a very similar.
Okay, I was going to ask what the difference was between a task force and a working group.
I think it's mostly semantics, Commissioner.
Okay, good. And yes, if I would like to be informed whenever they meet. If
Yes, ma'am.
That's
of course.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that.
Yes, ma'am.
Anybody else? If not, Craig read the motion. Is there a motion for approval? Thank you. Thank you. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Action item number 5, Texas Regulatory Efficiency Office rules. Recommended adoption of proposed changes. Mr. James Murphy.
Thank you, Chairman, Commissioners. James Murphy, for the record, General Counsel to the Department. I'm here today to present rule proposals related to recommendations from regulatory efficiency rules of the Department's Administrative Code. So just a quick rundown of the purpose of the Texas Regulatory Efficiency Office, or TREO. They assist state agencies in identifying outdated and redundant regulations and creating best practices to make agencies' rulemaking processes more efficient. They review state agency rules and procedures to reduce regulatory burdens, eliminate unnecessary or ineffective rules, and increase transparency for Texas taxpayers. This is a result of the last regular legislative session. It's in Government Code 465, and the office itself is housed within the Office of the Governor. So both TREO and the Department independently assessed our rules located there in Title 31, Part 2 of the Texas Administrative Code, or we call TAC. And then we met to agree on an initial list of recommendations to present to our stakeholders. We used our advisory committees for that stakeholder feedback. We presented it in 3 webinars. Back in March, we got good feedback from our advisory committees, as we always do. And then we met again with TREO to finalize a list of agreed recommendations that are all either supported by or not objected to by our advisory committees. Some of them need a little fleshing out. That process is underway for some of the more complex recommendations. regulations. And so some of this changes to like our statewide hunting and fishing proclamations. That'll get folded into our usual process that's coming up, and I'll touch on that in a second. Some of these recommendations did lead to some statutory changes. Those, of course, are at the discretion of the legislature, and so we'll see if any of those make it through the chute, so to speak, next session. So we present these to you in batches. It is a big lift going through the entire administrative code. And so here we are highlighted in yellow. This is our first batch of rules for chapters 51, 52, 53, 55, 59, 60, and 61. We brought those to you first in May. Here we are here today to adopt. The other batches, you heard the first presentation on batch 2 yesterday for permission to publish, and then you see the sequencing here. We'll bring a new permission to publish item each meeting to you until we conclude the 4th and final batch. That final batch is really the folding in of any statewide hunting and fishing recommendations into our statewide proclamation process, just for public ease of understanding our changes. Here are the results of this. As I mentioned yesterday, this is a very AI-driven process. Both the department did an AI assessment of our administrative rules, and Treo did that as well. So some recommendations here, ultimately leading to 160 that we agreed on, 132 that came from our self-evaluation, and 28 that were identified by Treo. They have issued a final report that's there on the screen back in April. It estimates cost savings to the public, the number of rules repealed, and word count reductions. The idea here is that simplification of our rules, condensing of our rules into fewer words, leads to less work for the public to understand what's going on. If it's simplified, maybe they don't need a lawyer in certain instances to navigate the government process. And so they have tabulated 657 total rules. Of that, 158 would be amended or repealed. A little over 208,000 total words. We're reducing that by 8,000. And that estimated cost savings there of about $4.5 to $10.5 million. And I do want to mention that that is a different number, a different estimation than what goes into our preamble for our rules. So you won't necessarily see all these numbers reflected in our rule preambles. There are some examples like where there's a fee reduction, where there would be overlap between the two estimations. So I'm going to go pretty quickly through these. You've heard them before. As I mentioned, the vast majority of what we're doing here is simplification. We're taking cross-references, or rather we are making cross-references to statute rather than quoting the statutory text. That way, when the statute is amended by the legislature, we don't have to then go back and amend our rules. So really most of the stuff you see here in Chapter 51 on this first slide falls into that simplification and clarification category of changes. I'm going to mention Chapter 52 for you. This is our stocking policy. This was enacted back in the 1990s. There were some allegations of favoritism in department stocking efforts, and so this was a way of assuring the public that we would not engage in favoritism with this program, and so we did put that into a administrative code policy. It was appropriate at that time to announce that through commission action. But as we stand here today, that's a bit in the distance. We don't have those kind of issues, and we believe that a department policy that governs the conduct of our employees effectively ensures accountability with stocking actions and would allow for corrective action if any sort of conflicts of interest or other things like that were detected. So I think we end up in the same place, but we don't need it in our administrative code. That makes things simpler for the public. Finance, our Chapter 53 changes. I'm going to highlight that one at the bottom. This is a fee reduction for some of our field trials and dog training events, down to $50 for all of those. That's a number that was put in place for one particular permit during last legislative session, and we thought it made sense to reduce our fees on the others so that they are all equal. Again, here in Chapter 53, we have just some more of those primarily clarification changes. Chapter 55, this is our law enforcement chapter. Again, just small things like making sure that terms like conviction match up with final conviction, just clarifications where there've been ambiguities. So you'll see that throughout 55. Do want to talk a little bit about our controlled exotic snakes permits. This is one where we had received, and there was concern even in the legislature from local governments about not knowing where some of these dangerous exotic snakes would be located. There had been some instances of the fire department coming in and being concerned about venomous snakes there. And so we propose here to require permittees to notify their local government, their local animal control authority, so that that documentation is there. And ultimately, there is a slight change here from what we proposed back in May, where instead of where we had proposed in May that we would require that local government to do record keeping of that, we felt like that was pushing the limits of our authority a bit. And so we have put that responsibility on the permittee to notify the local government and then also maintain the records of that notification so that we can check and confirm that they've been made aware. So we're hopeful that this will really make a difference in that emergency response to some of those homes and facilities that have those snakes. Our parks chapters, you're going to highlight the first one here. This is there's a lower limit on our park entrance and park user fees associated with overnight use and special events. So we're going to just bring that number down a little bit just to make it a little bit less expensive for folks when reserving those. There is a range based on the size of the event, so we're talking about the lower end of that range that would be reduced. Do you want to talk briefly about our rules of conduct in parks? Two things here. The first is, you have a special event. An example of that is, a wedding at one of our parks. There is an exception allowed for serving alcoholic beverages in those types of events that would otherwise be prohibited. And so that's been kind of a paper-based process. It's gone all the way to our state parks director. We propose to delegate that down to allow faster response times on that, as well as make it clear that electronic communications and electronic approvals serve just as well as those paper approvals. Just part of our continuing effort around here to continue to digitize and modernize some of our processes. Maintenance reviews, again, mostly simplifications here. Do want to touch on our local park grant scoring criteria for both our local park and recreation program, our co-op or community outreach and outdoor program grants, and our small community grants programs. There's an opinion from the Office of the Attorney General that raised some constitutionality concerns about the Parks and Wildlife Code requirements around race and sex. And so we have tweaked our scoring criteria here to what we think put this on solid constitutional footing while still maintaining the purposes of this program, which is to deliver funds for parks and outdoor recreation for our local communities. So we think the program still serves its purposes, but is on more solid footing with these scoring criteria changes. Public comments, we had 3. It still remains 3 on agreement, no reasons provided. And with that, staff recommends the Commission adopt the following motion. The Texas Parks and Wildlife Commission adopts amendments to Title 31 of the Texas Administrative Code, Chapter 51, subchapters E, H, J, L, and M, Chapters 52 and 53, Chapter 55, subchapters C, E, F, I, and J, Chapter 59, subchapters A, B, C, and F, and Chapters 60 and 61 is listed in Exhibits A through R, with changes as necessary to the proposed text as published in the July 17, 2026 issue of the Texas Register. And with that, I'm certainly happy to answer any questions, and thank you.
All right, comments or questions? Thank you. I would entertain a motion for approval. Thank you. Thank you. All in favor? Aye. And any opposed? All right. Next, we have action item number 6, environmental review of transportation projects memorandum of understanding with Texas Department of Transportation, TxDOT. Recommended adoption of the TxDOT MOU. Ms. Laura Zebahazy.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. For the record, my name is Laura Zebahazy, Ecological and Environmental Planning Program Director within the Wildlife Division. During this Commission meeting, staff seek adoption of a proposed rule that adopts by reference the statutorily required Memorandum of Understanding, or MOU, between Texas Parks and Wildlife Department and Texas Department of Transportation, or TxDOT, regarding the environmental review of construction projects. Under provisions of Transportation Code 201.607, TxDOT is required to adopt a MOU with each state agency that has responsibility for the protection of the natural environment and for the preservation of historical and archaeological resources. It also requires TxDOT and each of the state agencies to adopt the memoranda and all revisions by rule, and requires an examination and revision of the MOU every 5 years. The MOU stipulates responsibilities of each agency, the information to be shared between the two agencies during transportation project reviews, and the review and commenting timeframe. As stated previously, the proposed MOU is intended to implement the statutory obligations of both TxDOT and TPWD regarding review of certain transportation projects. However, another intention of the proposed MOU is to continue to foster communication, collaboration, and cooperation between the two agencies. I am proud to share that over the last 5 years under the current MOU, TPWD and TxDOT successfully funded over $1 million for conservation action projects, like contributing to the understanding of barriers to pronghorn movement on the Marfa Plateau, supporting habitat restoration on 3 state parks, testing the efficacy of Texas tortoise translocation from areas slated for development, and evaluating swimming performance of rare fish to improve designs and specifications for road crossings. And as of last week, the Native Prairies Association of Texas closed on the Blunt Glade Conservation Easement using funding provided by TxDOT through the current MOU. This conservation easement will protect nearly 18 acres of federally threatened white bladderpod and state endemic Texas golden glade crest habitat in San Augustine County, one of the rarest habitats in Texas. The MOU also establishes and supports our transportation liaison position, which provides enhanced service to TxDOT during the coordination and review of certain transportation projects, as well as administratively manages the conservation action funding. The Transportation Commission authorized the publication of the proposed repeal of the current MOU and adoption of the revised MOU, and it was published by TxDOT in the Texas Register on February 13th, 2026. No comments were received by the public. As of 5 p.m. yesterday, TPWD received 4 responses in favor of the proposed rule and 1 response in opposition. 1 comment in agreement was undersigned by multiple organizations including Environment Texas Research and Policy Center, Defenders of Wildlife, Houston Wilderness, the Frontera Land Alliance, Greater Edwards Aquifer Alliance, the Watershed Association, Wild Basin Creative Research Center, and the Violet Crown Trail. The 1 comment in disagreement was too vague to discern the reason for opposition. In conclusion, staff recommend the Texas Parks and Wildlife Commission adopts an amendment to Section 69.71 concerning Memorandum of Understanding between the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department and the Texas Department of Transportation, with changes as necessary to the proposed text as published in the July 17, 2026 issue of the Texas Register. At this time, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Zebahazy.
I actually have a question, and I'm actually not kidding about it. You may think I'm kidding, but I actually love those little tortoises I assume it's the one that's kind of got the little catcher underneath its neck.
Oh, the care, yeah.
So, did we really put locator devices on their shell, like in that picture?
Yes, sir. There was, I think the research is down in Kingsville, and so they're actually just gathering data about Texas tortoise movements. They're also looking at quarantine lengths. They have a tendency we have a concern about a particular disease that they can have and removing them from one area to another, and if they actually end up getting ill or causing other tortoises to get ill. And so I think that's also another way to track where the individuals are.
So is there an actual written report for this study?
I'm happy to locate that for you and provide that if you're interested.
I promise I would actually read it if you did locate it.
Okay.
And I guess the wives' tale is they're more active in their movement, as a harbinger of rain events.
Oh,
and
okay.
I wonder if they correlated any increase in movement to what little rain they may get around. But
I will look for that because the money was contributed to a larger research project being done, and so I'll look for any information on summary reports on that money.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
Anything else? All right, thank you. I would entertain a motion for approval.
Chairman, excuse me, this is Dee for the record. We have one speaker signed up.
Oh, that's exactly right. Thank you, Dee, I had it written down and everything and totally went past it. We do have a speaker on this topic. Her name is Sharon Wilcox, and we welcome your comments.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Dr. Sharon Wilcox, and I represent the national nonprofit organization Defenders of Wildlife. I'm here to support your adoption of this MOU with TxDOT. We are especially excited about the addition of the new requirement that the interagency team collaborate on identifying opportunities to enhance wildlife habitat connectivity, improving terrestrial and aquatic species movement. TxDOT's widely celebrated ocelot crossings in the Thur district show what's possible when connectivity is treated as an ongoing priority, not an afterthought. Texas leads the nation in human fatalities resulting from animal vehicle collisions. And Austin and San Antonio rank amongst the worst U.S. cities for animal-related insurance claims. This reveals that this is a public safety issue as well as a wildlife one. A 2019 TxDOT Commission study identified over 100 road segments statewide where wildlife crossings would pay for themselves in collision savings alone. With adoption of this MOU, we urge you to take important next steps to commit to this initiative's success, tying identified opportunities to TxDOT's Unified Transportation Program funding so that these programs can be funded. Building on TxDOT's existing data, including their 2019 CTR Wildlife Crossings report, rather than beginning a new identification process from scratch. Support a statewide wildlife corridor action plan with real goals, timelines, and accountability, and reporting progress publicly on a regular basis so that the legislature and the public can track results. We urge you to adopt the MOU and to make clear that the agency intends to bring real data, real accountability, and real follow-through to this work to truly protect fish and wildlife resources and human safety. Thank you for your important work on this front and for the opportunity to comment.
Thank you. All right. Now I would entertain a motion to approve. Thank you. In a second?
Already second.
All right. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you very much. That motion passes. Action item number 7, selected deer harvest rules, recommended adoption of proposed changes. Mr. Alan Kane.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners. For the record, I'm Alan Kane, Wildlife Division Director. This morning, I'll be presenting two proposals pertaining to whitetail deer harvest regulations. The first proposal is in response to a petition for rulemaking requests that the department received regarding the take of whitetail deer in four North Texas counties that include Collin, Dallas, Grayson, and Rockwall. Specifically, the petitioner requested staff amend regulations to allow for the take of whitetail deer with a firearm on properties enrolled in MLD surrounded by a high fence. Staff agree with the petitioner's justification and contend there's no biological reason to restrict method of take on high fence properties enrolled in MLD. As a reminder, the department biologists set harvest recommendations and issue tags to each property enrolled in the Man's Lands Deer Program. Because this proposal is restricted to high fence properties, there's no biological impact on the deer populations on the neighboring properties. Furthermore, expanding method of take on these high fence properties provides landowners the tools they need to manage overabundant deer populations and prevent habitat degradation. Lastly, it's legal in these counties to use a firearm to harvest or hunt feral hogs, coyotes, small game, exotic big game species, demonstrating firearms can be used in the county safely for hunting. Staff's proposal would modify rules to allow for any lawful means for take of whitetail deer on properties enrolled in the Man's Lands Deer Program, provided the property is completely surrounded by a high fence of not less than 7 feet in height. Staff presented this proposal to the Whitetail Deer Advisory Committee on May 18th, and the committee supported staff's proposal. Additionally, staff held a scoping meeting in Grayson County on May 19th to gauge public interest, and there were 24 people in attendance. 9 opposed and 7 supported the proposal at that scoping meeting. The next proposal addresses an oversight that unintentionally created a conflict with mule deer archery season and mule deer general season dates. In 2025, the Commission adopted rules expanding the mule deer archery season to run a consecutive set of days in the Trans-Pecos, which is 62, and in the Panhandle, that's 56 days. That season structure created an overlap with the general season start date and the ending of the archery season dates because of natural calendar shifts. To correct this season overlap between mule deer archery and mule deer general season dates, staff are proposing the archery mule deer season run from the Saturday closest September 30th through Thanksgiving Day in the Trans-Pecos, and in the Panhandle, archery season would run from the Saturday closest September 30th through the Friday immediately prior to Thanksgiving Day. Staff received a total of 33 public comments, with 57.6% in agreement with the proposals, 24.2% disagreeing completely, and 18.2% disagreeing specifically with those proposals. Reasons for disagreement pertaining to the MLD include public safety concerns with firearm discharge, creating a rule to benefit just a few landowners, and that high fencing will restrict deer movements. And reasons for disagreement with the mule deer season date was a change to the archery season date was just simply unnecessary from the one commenter. Staff recommends the Commission adopt the following motion. The Texas Parks and Wildlife Commission adopts an amendment to Title 31 of the Texas Administrative Code, Section 65.42, as listed in Exhibit A, with changes as necessary to the proposed text as published in the July 17th, 2026 issue of the Texas Register. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions? Do you think that the one comment about that high fence, I forget how they worded their comment, but do you think that this rule will cause more high fence to be built?
Me personally, no. High fencing is costly and likely to turn, I mean, 50 to 70,000 mile to put up a high fence. I don't see people running out there putting up a bunch of fence. Furthermore, those 4 counties up there, if you're not familiar with them, they're some of the fastest growing population density in the state, and habitats being lost at an alarming rate. The fact that somebody might put up a fence and use it to manage deer may actually save that habitat up there versus it just being developed.
Okay. Other comments or questions? We do have a speaker from the public, Mr. Cody Samick. Welcome.
Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. My name is Cody Samick, and I serve as a ranch manager for a 2,400-acre high-fence ranch in Grayson County, enrolled in the Texas Parks and Wildlife Managed Lands Deer Program. I have more than 8 years of wildlife management experience, and I know firsthand how challenging it can be to meet prescribed harvest recommendations under normal circumstances, much less when our available means of take is limited to archery. I'm here today to respectfully support the staff's recommendation because our property would directly benefit from this proposed change. For the 2026-27 season, TPWD has issued our property 52 antlerless tags. Our January thermal survey observed approximately 3 does for every 1 buck, a ratio we consistently see in our incidental and camera surveys. Because our ranch is high fence, we are managing a closed population with no immigration or emigration. Meeting these harvest recommendations is not simply about killing deer. It's about sound wildlife management and being good stewards of the land. Maintaining deer numbers at a level the habitat can support is essential to protecting habitat, quality, and long-term health of both the deer herd and our ecosystem. Archery will continue to be an important part of our management program, but it has its limitations when trying to meet a substantial antlerless harvest recommendation. Not every deer comes to a feeder or presents an ethical shot within archery range. The use of a rifle would provide us an additional effective tool to safely and ethically accomplish our management objectives. Firearms are already lawfully used in these counties to harvest feral hogs, coyotes, exotics, and other species. We are simply asking for the same wildlife management tools available throughout the rest of Texas, and for a practical means of carrying out the harvest, TPWD has already authorized for our property. Aldo Leopold identified the 5 tools of wildlife management as the axe, the plow, the cow, the fire, and the gun. Each is simply a tool. And our responsibility as wildlife managers is to use the appropriate tools to properly manage the resource. I respectfully ask the Commission to adopt the staff's recommendation. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Samick.
Thank you.
Do I have any more comments or questions from the Commission? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion for approval.
Scott, so moved.
Thank you.
Commissioner Bell, second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. And we move to action item number 8, depredation permit rules, recommended adoption of proposed changes. Mr. Alan Kane.
Again, for the record, I'm Alan Kane, Wildlife Division Director. This morning I'll present proposed amendments to rules pertaining to the depredation permit. Under Parks and Wildlife Code, Chapter 43, Subchapter H, the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department may issue depredation permits authorizing the take of protected wildlife that cause damage to commercial agricultural interests or pose a threat to public safety. Under current regulations, authorized methods for taking terrestrial wildlife under a depredation permit are determined by species, and excluding alligators are limited to centerfire firearms, rimfire firearms, and shotguns. House Bill 2842 passed during the 89th Texas Legislature and amended by the Texas Legislature and amended the Parks and Wildlife Code to provide a mechanism for political subdivisions, state and federal agencies, public institutions of higher education, and property owners association to address public safety and habitat impacts resulting from overpopulations of white-tailed deer in areas where traditional hunting is insufficient for population management. While no regulatory changes were required to implement House Bill 2842, rule amendments are necessary to allow for the use of depredation permits in areas where discharging firearm is unsafe or restricted by local ordinances. The proposed amendment would replace the current species-specific restrictions with a general framework allowing the department to specify additional authorized methods of take, such as air rifles or archery equipment, under a depredation permit. The proposed rule language stipulates that the means and methods of take of wildlife will be prescribed by the department as a permit condition. These changes are essential to provide flexibility in addressing the take of wildlife under a depredation permit as appropriate and necessary, and are consistent with other permit authorizations such as the scientific research permit, which permit conditions are authorized by staff on a case-by-case basis to best fit that situation at hand. Additional proposed changes clarify the period of validity for a depredation permit issued for agricultural damages and streamline reporting by removing requirements to document the number of antler points on a main beam for antler deer taken under a depredation permit, and further remove any amendments that are either redundant or already in statute and therefore unnecessary. The proposal was presented to the White-tailed Deer Advisory Committee on May 18th, and they supported that proposal. The departments received 9 total comments, with 77% in agreement and 22% in disagreeing specifically with the proposal. Reasons for disagreement were no formal training on the use of firearms at airports, and the other one was the concern about mountain lions being included on the depredation permit. And as I mentioned yesterday, just to be very clear, mountain lions or a depredation permit is not required to take mountain lions in the state. Staff recommend the commission adopt the following motion. The Texas Parks and Wildlife Commission repealed Title 31 of the Texas Administrative Code, sections 65.24 and 65.226. Adopt amendments to sections 65.221 and 65.227, and adopts new sections 65.224 and 65.226 as listed in Exhibit A, with changes as necessary to the proposed text as published in the July 17th issue of the Texas Register. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Recommended adoption of proposed changes. Mr. Michael Tennant.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners. For the record, I'm Michael Tennant, Regulations and Policy Manager for the Inland Fisheries Division. The proposed rules are housekeeping changes intended to keep the rules accurate by adding dotted duckweed to fee applicability. The fee is the same as the existing fee for water spinach, which is currently the only other exotic aquatic plant authorized for cultivation. A total of 2 public comments were received for the public comment notice, with 1 disagreeing completely and 1 disagreeing specifically with the proposed rules. The single public comment disagreeing specifically noted that the proposed fee appears unreasonably low given the substantial financial benefit to the commercial producer and the potential ecological risks if activities are not adequately managed. Staff recommends the Commission adopt the following motion. The Texas Parks and Wildlife Commission adopts amendments to Title 31 of the Texas Administrative Code, Section 53.15, as listed in Exhibit A, with changes as necessary to the proposed text as published in the July 17th, 2026 issue of the Texas Register. That concludes my presentation, and I'll be happy to take any questions.
All right. Questions? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve. Thank you. All right, in a second. I think I got Rolling and Timmerman. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. Action item number 10, request for drainage easement, Hayes County, approximately 1.2 acres at A.E. Wood Fish Hatchery. Mr. Jacob Aston.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners. My name is Jacob Aston, and I'm a project manager with the Land Conservation Program. And this morning I'll be presenting an approximately 1.2 acre request for drainage easement at the A.E. Wood Fish Hatchery in Hayes County. Here's a county map showing Hayes County indicated with the red star located in central Texas. Here's a more zoomed in map showing the fish hatchery located in San Marcos, Texas. The A.E. Wood Fish Hatchery was built in 1949 and named after A.E. Wood, who served on the Texas Game and Oyster Commission. The fish hatchery has a 33,000 square foot building for intensive culture operation and 50 plastic-lined ponds that provide nearly 47 surface acres of water. The hatchery is responsible for raising millions of fish each year for the stocking into the public waters of Texas. The City of San Marcos requests a drainage easement that is approximately 2,100 feet long and 25 feet wide. This totals an easement area of approximately 1.2 acres, and the easement is needed for the construction and installation of approximately 2,100 linear feet of 8-foot by 4-foot reinforced concrete box culverts, which will divert stormwater away from the hatchery and the surrounding neighborhood. Here's an example of those reinforced concrete box culverts that they plan to install. Here's an overview map showing the fish hatchery outlined in red. And zooming in, you can see the requested easement outlined in yellow. As of yesterday at 5 p.m., there have been 7 total comments, all in agreement. And staff recommends the Commission adopt the following motion. The Texas Parks and Wildlife Commission adopts the resolution attached as Exhibit A and authorizes the Executive Director to take all necessary steps to grant an approximately 1.2 acre easement at the A.E. Wood Fish Hatchery. That concludes my presentation. I'll be happy to take any questions.
All right, Mr. Scott. I thought you were. Is this box culvert above ground or below ground?
Below ground.
It's all below ground?
Correct.
All right. Any questions or comments? All right.
Well, I'll make one quick comment. I'm very familiar with the area since I live over there. This is a pretty, oops, wrong one. I'm pretty familiar with that area since I live over there, and this does nothing but benefit all the surrounding houses.
Yeah.
So, saying that, I'll make the motion to approve it.
All right. Do I have a second? Second. All right. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, Jacob.
Thank you.
That passes. Action item number 11, land acquisition, Henderson County, approximately 650 acres. Mr. Stan David.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. This item is a land acquisition. Henderson County at 650 acres and will make a new state park. Red star there, Northeast Texas, Henderson County. A little more zoomed in map there. We're approximately 25 miles east of Athens at this subject tract. Approximately 650 acres located between Tyler and Athens on Lake Palestine, which is a 25,000 acre lake in Northeast Texas. Property consists of wooded and pasture land and has some small ponds and lakes in the interior. It's suitable for overnight and day use areas like lake recreation, hunting, fishing, waterfowl hunting access, hiking trails, and other recreational opportunities. Subject tract here outlined in yellow. You can see that it is adjacent to the lake. To date, 540 total comments, 95% agree. There's some specific reasons for disagreement. I think the most important one is the concerns about increased vehicle traffic in the neighborhoods and also increased boat traffic on the lake. Staff currently working for some alternatives to help with that vehicle traffic. Staff recommends the Commission adopt the following motion. The Texas Parks and Wildlife Commission authorized the Executive Director to take all necessary steps to acquire from a willing seller approximately 650 acres in Henderson County. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right. Questions? Comments? If not, I would entertain a motion.
Moves to approve.
All right.
Commissioner Bell, second.
Got it. Motion and a second. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Next, briefing item number 12, 20 years of alligator gar science and conservation. Mr. Dan Daugherty.
Good morning. Good morning, Chairman, Vice Chairman, Commissioners. For the record, my name is Dan Daugherty, Science Program Director for Inland Fisheries Division and Director at Heart of the Hills Fisheries Science Center. I'm here today to share 20 years of work by staff on alligator gar here in Texas. I want to get everybody kind of on the same page, so I'm gonna go through this timeline of where we were and where we've come. So prior to 2006, alligator gar in Texas were unregulated, unmonitored. We knew little about populations, and if you want to dial way back to our predecessor agency, the Game Fish and Oyster Commission, they spent much of the 1930s trying to eradicate gars, all species of gars, from our waters because they felt that they were detrimental and destructive to game fish populations, up to the point of creating what was called the electrical gar destroyer. That was the real name of the contraption that they made. In the 2000s, even a little bit before that, the outlook on alligator gar changed. They became more of a game species, well, a sport species that folks wanted to fish for just because of their size and their fight. They became popular in the media, fishing shows, magazines. The Discovery Channel did some shows here in Texas on alligator gar. There was even a Wall Street Journal article on alligator gar in the Trinity River. And these fisheries started to develop across the state, but it remained unregulated. And at that time, we started to initiate study, trying to figure out, kind of get a handle on these fisheries and populations. In 2008 and 2009, the Commission took first action to put on a 1 per day statewide regulation, and the idea of that at the time was to be a temporary regulation to allow us to study the fisheries and get a better handle on the biology and ecology of the species. And at that time, we made alligator gar a research priority for our division. In 2013, I was here and provided an update on where we were in the process at the time. 2019, we were approaching a state of being management ready, meaning that we had the biological data that we felt we needed to make science-based decisions on alligator gar management in the state. And at the time, the Commission took additional action, remaining with the 1 per day statewide, but adding a Trinity River gar tag for fish over 6 feet, a maximum length of 48 inches, and instituted statewide mandatory reporting of alligator gar harvests across the state. And that brings us to today, here to give you a 20-year milestone update on where we are today. So when I said 2019, we felt we were management ready. I'm going to go through kind of what we've learned and also what we've learned since then in these various categories of data collection. So population status, we've looked at multiple populations across the state: Trinity River, the Brazos River, Guadalupe River, Choke Canyon Reservoir, Falcon Lake, and no matter where we look, we see pretty healthy populations with quality size structure. Here you can see a graph of the Trinity River. That's the length distribution of fish in various categories. The highlighted blue area with the 20%, that's fish over 6 feet in the population. So 1 in 5 fish in the Trinity River over 6 feet, sorry, as of our last estimate. Great size structure. It's even better in the Brazos River at over 30%. Age and growth. A couple years ago, we worked with another state agency in Mississippi, Fisheries Department, and they had a fish that they was killed in a gill net, and they sent it to us for us to age because it was the largest alligator gar ever captured, 8 foot 5.5 inches, 326 pounds, I believe. and they wanted us to age it. So they sent it to us. We estimated age at 95, but after that, did some work with radiocarbon and figured out that the lifespan was actually, or it was over 100 years old. So it died in a net. We don't know if that's max age, but it definitely had a 100-year lifespan. And we know that the quality fishery is female. The graph I had on this slide apparently is not working again. We fixed it in the practice run, but it is not showing up again. So I'll do my best to explain what the graph was going to show. Essentially, the oldest fish we have in Texas right now is 60 years old. And that may be related to what happened in the 1930s when we were doing all this eradication. It's been 100 years roughly, and we haven't been able to return to a full natural age structure in the population. We know that fish grow really fast when they're young, through about 5 to 10 years of age, and as they start to plateau as they reach reproductive maturity. We also know that male fish don't get above 6 feet. 97% of all fish in the trophy size classes, 6 foot and above, are female, which is really important for population persistence. Reproduction and year class strength, very strongly tied to spring and summer flooding. As you can see in this picture, that's a group of alligator gar, the one big female and a bunch of smaller males. They move up on floodplains. They spawn in aggregate groups in these flooded terrestrial areas. And you can see from the graph here, the hydrograph, that's the last 10 years on the Trinity River. Each of those blue arrows is pointing to a year in which we had a flood of long enough duration and magnitude to support strong year classes in the Trinity River. The yellow X, we actually sampled to verify that these year classes were being produced under these conditions in 2015 and 2016, and what we found was the 2016 fish did spawn, or there was a successful spawn in 2016. However, the 2015 fish are still kind of hanging around the same areas, and there was a lot of depredation on that year class. So we have this negative feedback loop, positive feedback loop, depending on how you look at it. But yeah, we don't think we get year classes back to back. So again, in 24, 25, we had some great floods, probably had a strong year class in 24, not so much in 25, but plenty of reproduction in the last 10 years in the Trinity. Movement and habitat use. Although fish do make some long distance movements, likely related to spawning, most fish are homebodies. We have had a tag population in the Trinity River for a number of years now, working with partner anglers, catch and release guides that tag fish for us and then report recaptures of those fish. We've had some fish caught 3-4 times from the same general area of the river, even in the same pool, over 3 or 4 or 5 years time span. 90% of the movements that we have found, based on all kinds of different studies, some telemetry, some tagged fish, are very localized. Harvest, our goal is under 5%, given the longevity of the species and the growth of the species and our model outputs. We want harvest to be under 5%. We estimated it. Most systems run between 2 and 4%. That's changed in recent years. It's become even less, right around 1%. And so our harvest at present is sustainable. As far as the fishery goes, and our angler base, we have about 100,000 anglers that are interested in fishing for gar. But we really didn't know, as of 2019, much about where they fished, what their harvest behaviors were, or their preferences. And so we have studied that in the interim through an alligator gar angler survey, as well as utilizing the mandatory harvest reporting data that was instituted in 2019. So I want to share some of those highlights. As far as where folks like to fish, the Trinity River is far and above the most popular fishery. You'll also see the LL there in the middle. That's Lake Livingston, so you can add those folks to the Trinity River system. Brazos River, a distant second. As far as fish harvest, Rod and reel anglers, 90% of them, and bow anglers, 82% of them tend to harvest very few fish, less than 3 fish per year. Most anglers not even harvest, 60% of rod and reel anglers not even harvesting any alligator gar. They're pretty much catch and release oriented. When we ask questions about what motivates folks to fish for alligator gar, the reason we don't see a whole lot of harvest, I think, is because most folks aren't really that interested in harvesting them for consumption. As you can see here in the upper circle, 38% of rod and reel, 40% of bow anglers, and 46% of other anglers, so jug liners, trout liners, harvest to eat. So most folks aren't really harvesting alligator gar to eat. But you can see the drastic difference in the lower circle. Folks want to be out there after gar for the challenge and the thrill of catching a fish of that size. We also asked anglers about their support for various regulations. So as you can see here, we had positive support for the use of length limits, both among rod and reel and bow anglers, and support for mandatory harvest reporting. We had less support for the harvest permit system that we have in place right now. In terms of those permits on the Trinity River, this is a graph of the license years across the X, and the number of permit applications, permits issued, and harvests along the y-axis. And you can see in the orange, the number of applications is increasing over time. The last few years, it's been over 400. We're issuing 150 permits, but the interesting thing that we have seen over time is the number of permits that are actually being filled and reported. So the fish that are actually harvested is that gray line that's almost imperceptible right there on the bottom of the screen. The most we've had, 10 fish. So we wanted to know why we weren't seeing a whole lot of harvest. And so we followed up with permit holders in license years 20, 21, and 2022 and asked them, did they actually even fish for alligator gar in that license year? And surprisingly, 30 to 40% of folks said they did not. Some of that was related to flooding or low water levels in some cases, but roughly 40%, 30 to 40% didn't even get a chance to exercise their tag. We had also asked for comments about, why you didn't fill your tag even if you did fish, and they fell into pretty much these 3 categories. They just elected not to keep one. They released the ones they caught. They saw plenty of big gar, just not the one that they were looking for. So they were being very, very, very selective for an absolute trophy-sized fish. And then we had a contingent of folks that were applying for a tag for conservation purposes, essentially so that one wouldn't get harvested. And we asked them for recommendations regarding regulations moving forward. And we had a few great suggestions. Consider increasing the number of tags due to the lack of harvest, as you saw in that graph. Implement a tag system such as done for bull reds, so everybody gets one, oversized fish a year on their license. And give a preference point to people who don't draw. So much like the drawn hunts program through the Wildlife Division, if you apply for a hunt and don't get drawn, you get a preference point for next year. So folks that don't get that apply for an alligator gar tag in the Trinity and don't get one, they will get a preference point under that idea. So looking forward, we're really in the position to be putting a bow on alligator gar research. All this work has resulted in 39 scientifically peer-reviewed publications published in fisheries journals. We're transitioning fully now to more of a management and monitoring phase, I guess. Alligator gar surveys gave us excellent feedback for consideration moving forward in trying to strike a balance between healthy stocks, good size structure, and diverse angling opportunities for the species. So that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions you have. Thank you.
Mr. Scott.
Yeah, I remember, I've been here so dang long, I remember when Ralph Duggins was our chairman and really got this deal fired up.
Yes, sir.
He and his son had been fishing on the Upper Trinity.
Yes, sir.
And he deserves a lot of credit for putting the emphasis I'm really happy to see the percentage of increase on anglers versus bow fishermen, you know, because obviously you kill them if you're going to bow fish them, right? But I think it's important to keep, and I grew up down in Port Arthur area, and we had lots of bows, and we'd get guard. None of these big ones, though. That's really the Upper Trinity, I guess, is about the main place for them. But anyway, I just think it's interesting, and it is a unique game fish. Don't fall into the deal to issue too many tags. I think we're showing that what y'all are doing right now is kind of maintaining what we need to maintain. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Doggett, I just like, it's such an exotic species to me. It's pretty fascinating. You've kind of grown up around them, but harvesting was never on the agenda, right? You say that Trinity and Brazos is where we're really studying. You know, there's thousands of them just in ponds, and we had a seasonal pond, and they're amazing how they survive.
Yes,
and I understand 100 years. I mean, we had a seasonal pond that would dry and it'd just be a little mud in the bottom, and that's all it took. They could survive the season.
Yeah, it's very interesting. We actually found some in a pond that was, you know, maybe this floor space here, and there were 70 alligator gar in it. 70. I mean, there was just 6 inches of water left, but they were just persisting.
This was way in South Texas, and they were huge. I mean, they were 6 foot. It was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So how many tags did you say we issue?
We issue 150 tags for fish over 6 feet in the Trinity currently.
I bet the bow hunting fishing is pretty exciting with those guys.
I would imagine so.
Yeah.
I'm not a bow fisherman myself.
What is your lure? What attracts a gar?
I believe that most people use live bait.
Oh.
Chunks of buffalo or carp, and they fish the big deep pools during the summer.
I still say their ability to survive is pretty amazing.
Absolutely,
It's an interesting species. So thank you for this. It's very very enlightening. Thanks.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner McCall, I'm sure I was a big reason this is coming up here today, because I mentioned when I first got on the commission, I grew up on the Trinity River and been all up and down there. I've caught alligator gar on rod and reel. I've shot them with a bow. I've been up and down there. I would classify it as 3 populations: north of the Locking Dam, between the Locking Dam and the Trinity River Dam, and then the Lake Livingston Dam, and then below that. Obviously, on high water, the Locking Dam doesn't come into play because you can get above that. A lot of things I have seen is there's always got to be a balance. And if you got any questions about alligator gar, I can probably answer them. The way you fish them is use a chunk of usually buffalo. You put them out there. They've got a very bony mouth. They'll only bite what they think they can swallow. So that takes the human out of the food chain. The only rare bite that's ever happened is dangling foot, dangling hand. It hadn't been a handful of them in 75 years, so it rarely ever happens. When they take the bait, they drop to the bottom and run away from the other gar. And so if you're fishing with them, you've got to give out maybe 200 yards of line. You've got to have some steel leader on there to get past, and you've got to wait for them to swallow it, or you're never going to hook them. Then, when you go to reel them in to try to set the hook, when you get down through there, they've run under every log, every limb in the Trinity River. So on my son's 10th birthday, this was back when there were no limits, and I took him out there, and I'll tell you how easy this is. He was 0 for 21 before he finally got one in the boat. It was 6 foot 8 inches, still mounted in his room to this day. It was not easy because most of the time you're not even going to get them, because you get there and they're going to tear loose because they've run under too much structure. Bow, a lot of fun, up to about 3 feet, and then after that you're not going to handle them. And no, it doesn't kill them, because they're a very tough, hardy fish. So if you hit them and it tears out, you're not going to kill that fish. I mean, you're just not. I mean, it's a tough fish. You mentioned they're one of the few fishes with a lung and a gill. so they can gulp air and stay alive when every other fish in the pond is dying. One of the things that I'm concerned is the balance, because below the locking dam, that's on Highway 7, just not far out of Crockett, the sand bass, or the white bass, we always call them sand bass growing up, it's legendary about when they run upriver to spawn, but they get caught by the locking dam. And yes, we had locks on that river. It was a transport river at one time. And below that, those runs up the creek were incredible. I mean, there were so many. We're seeing a lot less of those runs now. And the reason is alligator gar is a predatory fish. They'll usually bite or eat the slower fish, like the trash fish. But you lock them up there, they're a fish in a barrel for a gar to come along and take all the white bass that they want. That has slowed down. So if you have too many alligator gar, you're going to lose some sport fish. I'm just telling you, we've seen that. You've also seen it below the Trinity River Dam with the stripers, which are, I guess, all but gone now. Different theories on why that happened, but I think it was a factor there. So I think there's got to be a balance here. One a day under 4 feet, I think, is way too restrictive. And I'd like to. You've got the studies, and we're here. And I thank you so much for the report and all the data that's gone into this. But with that data, I think we can use this to open this up, because, like you said, it's dropped down to 1% of the harvest. Well, the reason is if you're going to take one a day and nothing over 4 foot, it's not worth your time to put the boat in the water. It's just not. And so this is a great sport fishing opportunity. You know, I'd like to see the limit go back to 3 or 4 a day and up to 6 foot, and then maybe one tag, a trophy tag that you can use, maybe even purchase another one. I can charge as much as you want. Somebody wants one that bad. But the biggest one that I've taken is a 7.2. That was, and a lot of these you'll get in oxbows, because the river comes up and they get trapped. And you can go in there, you can fish for them a little easier than you can out in the Trinity. And there was one, that's interesting, you said 8 foot 5.
8 foot 5.5, yeah.
8, 5.5, because there was one in this oxbow, Blue Lake, which used to be in my family, and it was kind of cool for me to go in. That's where the guys that were guiding back there saw one they estimated to be 10 foot. They thought this would be the world record. Well, I wanted it, and so did Johnny Morris at Bass Pro Shop. So I went there, got a 7.2, very hard to get. He went the very next week, got an 8.2, and then the river came up, and that 10-footer, if he was really a 10-footer, and that's what they estimated him at, he's still out there, because they got out of the river and it went away. So these are sporting opportunities I would like to see, brought back. It's like having the white-tailed deer, and then say, you can never kill anything over a 10 point ever. It's a sporting opportunity lost. So I would respectfully ask, Mr. Chairman, just at our next meeting, bring us back some recommendations to maybe get us, not where we were, unlimited, not saying that, but maybe get back up to what you think might get us to that 5% healthy take threshold, and invigorate some of our sport fishermen to start, going after the sport fish again.
Happy to do so.
Thank you.
Just in case you're interested, I left this at the end in case y'all ask me some questions, so it's being preemptive. But that's the 8 foot 5.5 world record fish that's 100 years old, and what you're seeing there is what's called the otolith. That's how we age them. That would be akin to the hammer and stirrup in your inner ear. You can extract that bone and section it, and you can see early on. You can see the rings, kind of like they grow kind of like a tree, so an annual growth increment. And to the left of that picture is the core, the natal core, and then each year's growth is coming on. And under a microscope, you can see 95 rings on that. If you use radiocarbon, you can get it to 100.
I'm not sure we needed the task force or 20-year research. We have Commissioner McCall.
I grew up on that Trinity River back when we had sea ticks out there, and we'd get so covered up in those things, chasing armadillos and everything else, we'd have to go get in the river to wash off before we could go home. So I know all about that Trinity River.
I bet. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, Commissioner Scott.
Just as a parting comment for all of y'all commissioners, we have a deal in the spring, and I forget when we do the deal up on Lake Livingston for the striped bass. You know, where we drop the electrodes in the water. Y'all can go down there and do that, and it is a trip, because you'll see the sawfish, but by the edge of the boat there'll be alligator gars that'll roll over that you'd think, I sure wish I would never be in this water. You know, they're so big. I was glad to hear they don't eat anything any smaller than what'll get in their mouth.
All right, any other comments?
I had a question, Pat, and I have my experience with alligator gar was in Toledo Bend, and do we do any studies there? And specifically, you've got the added benefit. I'm assuming that our neighbors in Louisiana don't have quite the same rules and regulations or care and concern for the alligator gar. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but yeah. But do you actually? I'd like to know what their rules and regulations are. I truly have no idea, but I'm curious with fishing pressure from both sides of that lake. You know, it's if you see a difference in alligator gar there as opposed to others.
We have not sampled Toledo Bend, but I know that there have been some big fish taken there. And I'm not sure offhand what Louisiana's regulations are, although I don't even know if they have any. And if they do have some, I know that they're much more liberal regulations.
All right. Mr. Doherty, thank you. Before we adjourn, I want to make a brief comment. Yesterday, we had 101 speakers who signed up to discuss various issues, most of whom raised concerns about border barriers in our state parks and state natural areas. I don't think there was anybody in the room who wants to see bigger barriers and walls and lighting and other obstructions in our state parks, in our pristine areas. So I just want to go on record by saying that we heard you all and we agree with your concerns. I'm personally committed to doing anything I can do to make sure we maintain the beauty and integrity of our parks. I recognize the need for border security and would never do anything to compromise border security, but I also recognize the value of our parks and wide open spaces, and I'll vigorously oppose any unnecessary or ill-advised incursions. So I just wanted to make that comment before we closed. Dr. Yaskowitz, this commission has completed its business, and we're adjourned at 11:06 a.m. Thank you.